Welcome to the Pastured Pig Podcast, where we share the successes and challenges of raising pigs on pasture. We talk to producers all over the country, from small homesteads to large commercial pasture operations. Whether you're new to pastured pigs or have been raising hogs for decades, we hope you hear new ideas and new perspectives on pasturing hogs. Here's your host, Troy McClung.
Well, it's another week for the Pastured Pig Podcast. I pray everyone is doing well and doing the best they can with our crazy times that we're in right now with this pandemic. Hopefully everyone is safe and you're able to get some additional farm work done. Some of you pig farmers, day really hasn't changed much because you stay home all the time anyway and work your butt off. So, try to keep a positive attitude going through this. So I pray that everyone's doing the same. Well, today we've got an interview with Ben McMurray, another Michigander. We had one last episode. Ben is with Hill Valley Farm, and he has a really interesting take on his operation up there. He incorporates an Airbnb setup that helps supplement some income for him on the farm. And his family's about to grow as they are expecting a child this summer. So I'm going to dive right into our conversation and catch you guys on the backside. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pastured Pig Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Troy. And this episode, we're actually stepping into Michigan again, if I keep these in chronological order. So another foray into Michigan here with Hill Valley Farm and Ben McMurray. Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, I'm glad you could take some time to talk with me this evening. So I have to ask, the pronunciation of the town that you live in, is that true French? So is that Charlevoix, or do the Michiganders change that somehow?
Charlevoix is the official pronunciation.
Charlevoix, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So shows you how much French I know.
Well, you know about as much as I do.
All right. Yeah. Here in West Virginia, somebody would take something like that and make it Charlie Vox or something. So
Oh, we get all the pronunciations. There's another town close to me called Petoskey, and that one's equally as challenging for people to pronounce.
Yeah, I saw that on the list. I thought, well, I'm not sure I'll try that one either. But yeah, we actually, my office where I'm sitting right now and recording is a town called Hurricane. It's spelled hurricane, but anybody that comes in the area and says, oh, this is Hurricane, huh? Then we know you're not from around here because everybody pronounces it Hurricane. So it's one of those things. Okay, well, I digress too much. So, let's talk about Hill Valley Farm in Michigan. Give me the 40,000-foot elevation view of what you've got going on there.
So we're located up in the northern Lower Peninsula. Most people might know Michigan has two peninsulas. We're about an hour south of the Mackinac Bridge. Our farm's situated about 3 miles from Lake Michigan, so it really creates some interesting weather challenges, but it also does moderate our temperature quite a bit. So yeah, it's a nice location. We have a lot of tourist economic benefits, especially in the summer. And as far as my farm specifically, I bought it in 2013. It's been a farm for a while, but it's pretty run down, similar to your property. I think the whole hoarder, garbage everywhere, all kinds of good fun, frustrating, all those good experiences. Actually, there was two houses. One of them, the fire department came and did a controlled burn. So basically, I mean, started with some decent bones, but it's been a big work in progress. And then my wife and I got married in 2015, and we wanted to have a pig roast. And we said, hey, we already have chickens. Those are easy enough. Let's get some pigs and raise a pig for our wedding. So we did that, and just kind of did little expansions. Let's try something new every year, and here we are.
All right. So let's back up a little bit here because I have to ask the question. We have similar stories as far as our property goes. So 2013, you bought the property. 2015, you got married. Now, in 13, were you dating Brittany at that time?
Yes, but she saw the property after pretty much a majority of the garbage was us out of here. Yeah. So we still had the old house, and I hadn't done any remodels or anything. So she didn't get the worst of it, but I mean, it wasn't too far off.
Okay, yeah, that's good, because that's sometimes in my situation. I showed my wife the property when it had about 3 inches of snow on it, so she wasn't sure what those big mounds of things were all around. I didn't tell her that they were raw garbage.
That was wise of you.
Yeah. So the I was looking at your website here. So 13,000 pounds of scrap metal were collected. That's impressive.
Yep, and I'll make note that none of it was like car bodies or anything. It was all stuff that was in the 1 to 50 pound range. So
Exactly. So you're picking up about 5,000 individual items. Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Oh yeah. I always remarked we had 225 tires was one of my benchmark collection pieces. So.
Well, you doubled my count.
Yeah, good stuff. You gotta love, gotta love old school. I don't even know if I could call mine hoarders. I think mine were just simply, let's try everything under the sun to make an income, and if it doesn't work, we'll just leave it here over the hill. So that's kind of what we cleaned up.
It's a good time.
Yeah. Okay. So with the farm, so you've got several things going on there. It's not just exclusive to pigs, right? So tell us what all you have as far as interests and revenue generators.
So like I briefly mentioned, we start off with layer chickens like everyone does. We've done meat birds for our family. Pigs are my main interest. We started doing artificial insemination. We now have a boar and 4 sows and do farrow to finish. And then I have multiple neighbors. They're all brothers in their 70s. They grew up farming, so they are very willing to assist me in all kinds of knowledge sharing. So I've gotten into growing feed, corn. Last year we grew oats and barley as well, cut hay. So all of those are dabbling with the farm. And then a couple years ago, we, in conjunction with another friend, we built a tiny house and we put it on Airbnb. So like I said, we have a pretty tourist-heavy region, especially in the summer. So we started the tiny house and rented that for the summer, and then we also built a yurt, and we do that as well. So that's associated with the farm and is added income and time for that.
All right, good. Yeah, I want to stick a pin in that because I want to come back to that here in a little bit. Because, while it's not necessarily pig related, I do like the idea of diversified income streams on a farm. And so I do want to come back and talk about that here later. But let's drill down on your pigs. So you talked about you started off with AI. So why start with AI and not with a boar? What got you that direction?
Well, our first round of pigs, we bought 5. We had 1 for the wedding, butchered 2, and then we kept 2. And I looked into AI and I was like, well, it can't be this easy. I mean, I watched a YouTube video and I was like, it seems pretty basic. You just order and it shows up. You need a little bit of equipment, but it seems like for not that big of an investment and relatively straightforward, you could, take the next step and see what it's like to farrow some pigs. So that's kind of how we decided to go that route. And I can't remember exactly how many litters we did with AI, but we've done quite a few. I've had a pretty good success rate. And we note that there's a spousal bonding that occurs when the 2 of you are out there trying to do all the timing. And, in Michigan, you can have inclement weather out there with both of you in your winter clothes, one person sitting on top of the sow, and it's just slightly amusing for the folks that aren't used to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it makes for one of those interesting conversations around the water cooler at church on Sunday. What did you guys do this weekend? Well, funny you ask.
Exactly.
All right, wonderful.
So then this last year we just said, hey, we've done this. Let's see what it's like to keep a boar, and we've had a couple litters from our boar, and I'm not completely sold on either method, but we'll just continue seeing where we go, and for now we'll stick with the boar. But it definitely creates more challenges with having to manage different pens, different areas, and the timing of everything. But part of my whole, my enjoyment of farming is there's always something new to try and definitely always something new to learn.
Absolutely. Yeah, very good. Well, you'd mentioned that your foray into pigs started with a need for a roaster for your wedding. So let's back up further. Why in 2013 did you decide to get into farming? Was that something you were formally trained for? Is it something you've always wanted to do? Do you come from a family of farmers?
I don't come from a family of farmers directly. I mean, go back a couple generations and everyone was a farmer, but I didn't have a lot of exposure to it or anything. I'd say it's more of a curiosity. And we had a little garden growing up at my parents' house, so that's about the extent of my knowledge. And if anything, it was more curiosity. And as you know, one thing leads to another, and you keep finding something seems bigger and more time-consuming and more fun.
Exactly. All right. So is farming a full-time gig for you? Do you have an off-farm job? How are you managing that?
It is not a full-time job. I just graduated from nursing school this spring, so that is my full-time job. And my wife is an X-ray tech, so we have 2 off-farm incomes.
All right. Yeah. That's good, though, being in the healthcare. That gives you a lot of options there, a lot of flexibility when it comes to scheduling, doesn't it?
It does. I have a very flexible job. I actually work for a hospice organization up here, so I'm the night on-call guy. Huh. So I work on 7 days, and then I'm off 7 days. But essentially, besides the weekends, I have the daytime available to do farm chores or remodel my house or whatever I need. So it's a very flexible schedule and works out very well for me.
Good deal. Excellent. All right. Well, let's talk about the pigs in particular. We talked about the breeding there and the boars. Are you focusing on a specific breed right now? Is there something that really gets your attention that you like growing out?
So our first batch, we had a mix. We had some Duroc hemp mixes and then some with some old spot in them. And I'm pretty particular to the old spot. Honestly, if you want the real down, it's just I like spotted piglets. I don't think there's anything cuter than a batch of spotted piglets.
Yeah.
But we did, they're definitely a lard breed, which has its advantages and disadvantages. So 2 years ago, last time we did some AI, I got some Tamworth to try to, lengthen them out a little bit. And we've had the last few batches that are pretty Tamworth spot cross, and I've been really happy with how those have turned out.
Excellent. All right. So tell me a little bit about your setup as far as you've got the pigs and the chickens. Are you, I assume, doing rotational pasture? How much land do you have sectioned off for your pigs? How does that work?
So our total farm is 26 acres, and then we have our pasture is 16 acres. I don't have all of that dedicated to the pigs. I probably only have about an acre up by our garden. They have a little shack, and then I have electric fence, and I move them around, move them out into the field. We have an orchard and kind of till up additional areas and move them around. I do a lot of rotation. We do have it's a short season up here, so it makes for challenges keeping them on green stuff. So I do a lot of adding in hay, and then both I grind all our feed, so adding second cutting into that, plus round bales, having those available. So combination of all those things, but mostly portable electric fence to move them around and trying to reseed areas with done a lot of rye and then some turnips. I've done some oats, but sometimes they beat it up a little more than you like.
Right. So let's talk about the shorter season there. How are you overwintering? How's that working out for you? Do you have a sacrificial area? Do you have a barn? Are you keeping them in?
I have both. When we started off the first winter, they had, it's like a 6x6 shack, and we just put pig panels up, and they were down there. We held buckets of water and feed through the snow. It wasn't fun, but in the scheme of things, pigs don't need a whole lot. And then we ended up building 32 by 48 barn, and that's kind of the animal barn now where I lead them up there, the week before our first big snow is going to hit, and I have a little outside run for them, but mostly they just hang out in there and do their thing, and then I make a electric fence path back down to their summer shack, if you will.
Yeah, all right. How many pigs are you keeping on farm on average?
Well, we have 4 sows, 1 boar currently, and right now we have 17 from our spring litters. It wasn't as good of a spring as I would have liked, but we'll sell all those for feeder pigs. I think I could sell as many feeder pigs as I could produce in the spring, but we don't have so much of a market for those later in the year. So if we have, late summer farrowings, I tend to keep those over winter and then butcher them, mid-spring for anyone that wants a half or a whole, or we just started doing USDA last year. So that's kind of the route we've been going.
Okay. So when it comes time to your breeding schedule, you said you're keeping the boar sequestered, so you're introducing him when you want to have a specific schedule. So did you breed all 4 sows for this spring, or did you just have the two that farrowed?
Well, we actually, our 1 sow that's the oldest, she didn't take. I think she's probably done, if you will. So she didn't take. The other 3, they were all, everyone was bred at the same time. I can't do the math off the top of my head, but I figured it out for, a January-ish farrowing. And then of the 3 sows, we have 17 currently. So it's kind of where we're at, but it's definitely managing the boar with the having to keep them separate in separate spaces and not necessarily having all that infrastructure ready right now. It's created some challenges this year, and it's on my to-do list for this coming summer.
Yeah, I got to say I'm probably in the same boat. It's my first year trying boars as well. So let's talk about that. And this may be just a conversation between you and I. Hopefully people listening will find it interesting. So how are you keeping your boar isolated now, and what are the issues you're running into?
Well, I just have, the summer shack, if you will, has pig panels around it, and it's kind of separated out, and then I'll run the electric fence out and about, and then I made a separate pen that is adjacent to it with more pig panels, so I can keep, separate. I basically have 2 separate areas, and more of the issue that comes up is if I have growers that are down there too. I don't want to have my sows have access to full feed all the time like I do for the growers. Right. And then actually our boar bred some of the growers, and I didn't think that they were big enough to be bred. They seemed like they were like under 200 pounds, and I always thought they had to be, 6 months or older and a little bit bigger before they reach maturity, but we butchered one, and I was like, oh, there's some little fetal pigs in there. So that was a learning experience.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't really affect anything. It was just a eye-opening bit. So just having more separate areas available to keep the different stages of growth separate would be helpful. But then you have to factor in the needing to have separate paddocks, and so just kind of a logistical thing. I haven't worked out all the details yet.
Yeah, I definitely can understand that. Yeah, I'm trying distance as my main buffer now, more so than super strong. I'm going to see if I can keep my boars on a separate pasture, if that'll keep them away if they're 100 yards or more away. But we'll see. We're gonna see how that unfolds this year. Should be interesting.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Well, all right. Well, let's talk about feed a little bit. I know you'd mentioned that you guys are grinding your own, so kind of talk about the evolution of your feed process.
So we started off just going to the local feed mill in town, and they just mix up your conventional corn, soy, mineral mix, and we bought that by the ton and utilized that, and then supplement with garden vegetables, food scraps, all that good stuff. And then once I kind of got a little more involved with my neighbors, the ones that I mentioned, it's a group of brothers. His name's Dave. He's the most active farmer right now. And he was growing corn, and I kind of got involved with that, and drove the tractor, just kind of did it on shares a bit. And when all that was happening, he had a feed grinder and ground up some feed, but his feed grinder was already been patched together for 30 years, so it took a dump. And then springtime, I got my own feed grinder and just kind of started doing it that way, and using his corn, and then buying all the other stuff from the feed mill. And then last summer, I leased some land from another brother that's by me. He had about 14 acres and grew the oats and barley and corn, and now we're using all of those. We just buy soy locally and then mineral, so it's that plus the second cutting hay, and that's our feed. It's not a super scientific ratio. I don't really weigh a whole lot out. I just do 5-gallon buckets, and take the windows up the sides and just kind of ballpark it.
Yeah. All right. So when it comes to growing, planting, and harvesting, I assume the brothers have the equipment you need to do that, because that's takes a lot of equipment to manage 14 acres of monocrop.
Yeah. We bought a tractor. Previous to this, I was utilizing all his equipment, but we have a tractor, and then I have the feed grinder. But as far as, the corn planter, the seed drill, and all of those goodies, he has all of those. Actually, he has the original Minneapolis Moline. I don't remember the model or the year, but the original combine harvester. And this was the last year for it, because he's been keeping it going. But this year it also kind of fell apart. So we got all of our stuff harvested this year, and he said that's the last year we're using it. So I have another neighbor farmer that we're going to utilize his combine next year. He's already given me the okay. But it is very, very helpful to have those machines and equipment available, because definitely couldn't do it without their help.
Yeah, no, that's great. Again, that's taking advantage of what's in the community and what's around you. That would be tough to try to start with all your own equipment. So definitely take advantage of those around you that have it.
Yes.
Well, let's in your notes here that you sent me, you talked about you grew out some non-GMO corn as well. Is that something you just wanted to try? Were you getting some demand from your customer base?
My customer base, they don't really, it's more, we won't push the local. I've produced everything. That's more the avenue than necessarily the GMO versus non-GMO.
Yeah.
But for me, it's mostly a learning thing, if I try something new and see what all is involved with that. I guess it seems to me, again, this is coming from 2 years experience growing corn, but everyone says, what's the point of growing non-GMO? Well, it's more sustainable. You're not sporting Monsanto. It's less harmful to the earth. All of those normal things. And I guess I didn't really realize what was all involved exactly until I grew it. And, you still are spraying. A lot of people are still burning down the field beforehand. You're putting down pre-emergence. So I think the distinction isn't as black and white as a lot of people want to make it. Yeah. Whether that's good or bad, I think it's just a fact to point out. And if we're really trying to support, small time non-Monsanto seed, then maybe, non-GMO that realistically is probably coming from a large seed conglomerate anyway might not really be as big of a deal as people want it to be.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep. No, it does. It very much so. Yeah, I think I agree. I think there's a certain, and ignorance may be too strong a word to use, but there's a certain misunderstanding that non-GMO equals chemical free. And like you said, there's still a lot of inputs. There's still a lot of traditional, conventional style farming that's being used to raise those non-GMO products.
Yeah, I just wanted to, if I want to grow like an open pollinated variety, which is something I'd like to try in the future, then being able to see what growing non-GMO corn is, kind of a step to figure out what I'm going to need to do to manage that next seed that I'm going to try. Yeah. So that was kind of a thought that I had.
All right. What are you doing for storage of all your feed that you're grinding? Do you have a large silo, or are you just using bins?
So the side of our barn, we have there's 2 lean-tos off each side, and then off the one lean-to, kind of under the edge of it, I built like the old style corn crib with the corn slat, or the wood slats.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm storing all the corn, and then all the grain is just in totes underneath, and then I keep the grinder under there with the tractor, and it stays out of the weather, and it works well enough for what I have right now.
Yeah, so you're just grinding as needed. You're not grinding all in advance.
Correct. I just grind about 2 totes at a time, and I mean right now with what current pig situation I have to grind about every 2 weeks.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your market. You said already that you do sell a lot of wiener pigs. Do you sell a lot of cuts, wholes, and halves? How does that balance with your wieners as far as percentage of sales go?
I guess, well, when we started out, we didn't sell feeders. Everything that we had, we would, sell halves and wholes to people, and it was just the kind of standard word of mouth, family and friends. This person talks to this person. We have a fair amount of exposure through work, so, bulletin boards, that kind of thing. And then, as we became a little bit bigger with the springtime, I was like, the feeder prices in the spring, what you can sell a feeder pig for compared to the amount of money you get after it's a raised, butchered animal for the time and input. It's kind of like, we could probably make decent money doing feeder pigs compared to growing them all up. So then we started the feeder pigs, and frankly, if you wanted to put them on Craigslist, they'd disappear. But I know enough people that were interested that we could get rid of the ones that we grew. So I think last year we sold 26, and then this year we have 17.
Yeah. All right. So when it comes to some of your cuts, where are you finding your market? Like you said, some friends and word of mouth, that type of thing. How's that panned out each year? Do you see growth there? Do you see you have to pour more effort into it each year?
I'd say we haven't had as many repeat customers as I'd like. You want someone to have, I want a half every year, a whole every year. And I haven't quite put my finger on what that is, but I think a lot of it is people hadn't purchased a lot of our customers has not purchased meat in that fashion before, so maybe they're a bit overwhelmed by the quantity, or they just decided they didn't actually eat that much meat. And that was one of the premises for trying to start the USDA and selling by the cut. So we've had some of those customers that come out on a pretty regular basis and, pick out the cuts they want. And so doing a little bit of everything, I think, helps make it so you have something available for any customer. But definitely need to try to expand our market base. It's on our to-do list.
Yeah. Okay, so you mentioned something there about having your customers come out. Have you seen that's popular with your customers? They want to come out, see the farm, kind of hang out. I know you've got a tourism element there with the Airbnb. So is that what you're geared to set up, to have customers come out?
That was the premise. One of the other premises for the USDA was so we had cuts available for those people that were staying at the Airbnbs. So we have we'll stand up freezer in our garage. It's pretty rudimentary. It's not built up or kind of fancy. I'd like to make it a little better, but otherwise, most of the people that are coming up for the cuts are, family, friends, or whatever, and they're not going to mind walking in our garage. But if people wanted to, it's kind of an open door. You walk in our garage, and there's the freezer, and there's a cash box, and you do your transaction. And if I'm around, great. If I'm not, that works too.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Well, let's talk. I want to talk about your Airbnb element a little bit, and You had mentioned that the area where you are in Michigan, kind of a tourist area, so there's a lot of traffic coming through. Are you finding that people are booking your Airbnb because of the location, or are they drawn in because of the farm element, or a little bit of both?
I think it's all of the above. So it's rustic. We have, a moldering toilet. There's no running water per se. We have a foot pump that utilizes rain catchment. So it's pretty primitive, more like camping, I'll say, than some of the other Airbnbs. And I think that appeals to a lot of people, especially like, we're drawing from Detroit, Lansing, Grand Rapids, people that want to kind of unplug, get out of the city. And I think that is a big draw. The farm setting is an added draw. I'll say some people want to have a tour and, show them everything, and other people just want to be up here on vacation, and that's fine too. And then thirdly, the tourist area, people come up here and they're looking for a hotel room, but a lot of young people especially want a unique experience, so they're looking through Airbnb and say, hey, this looks really cool. So we have a really good success rate. Our tour season is short, so it's pretty much July and August are the meat of it, with a little bit of the fringe seasons, but it keeps us busy, and it definitely helps with the income. I mean, it's hard to run the numbers on your farming income per se, but the time and effort for profit is much better for rentals than it is for raising animals.
Right, sure. So when you look at that and balancing, again, we know that you're both all farm income with your jobs. How does that balance out when you look at your farm chores versus your Airbnb management for those 2 peak months? I mean, is that really become taxing at that point, or are they kind of autopilot?
Well, we tweak some things every year to make, one thing or another easier. The first year we had, you could do one night during the week. Last year we had 2-night minimum, so that really cuts down with the turnaround time to clean it up and do all the linens and everything. But since it is kind of a primitive thing, there isn't really a lot of cleanup necessary. It takes us about an hour. So, an hour for a 2-night rental, and our rentals, it's $119 a night. So profit for time is pretty good.
Yeah. Are you in that situation? Are you seeing any of your guests that are looking for interaction with the farmer? So like you said, the tours, the seeing the animals, all that. So do you have to have those interactions, or are they pretty much hey, you're here, here's your accommodations. If you need us, call us, but otherwise you won't see us?
We kind of say, hey, we're around if you want a tour. We have, other dedications like jobs, so we can't always make accommodations. But if you're going to be here for a couple of days, let us know. We'll try to make something happen. And I'll say maybe a quarter of people want to, have some kind of interaction, and the rest of the people just kind of do their own thing. I mean, sometimes people in the rentals are in the back of the property, so the only time I'll see people, they'll drive in and they'll drive out, and that's the only time I'll see a lot of them, but not always.
Are you offering any value-added services through the Airbnb with farm products? So, like anything a la carte when it comes to farm products for food or anything like that?
We send a price sheet. Generally we have everything in stock, but brats, bacon, pork chops, the standard kind of pork products, and say, hey, if you want any of these things, let us know. We're happy to thaw something up for you, or we can give it to you frozen when you get here. But that's an added bonus. We do provide eggs for them for breakfast, so those are the 2 farm products. The eggs are included with the rental. The pork is an add-on.
Yeah, excellent. Very good. So yeah, I think that's, and the reason why I wanted to talk about that a little bit, I think that's, as farmers are looking for these value-added opportunities, especially when it comes to larger tracts of land, taking some of that smaller portion of land and offering these type of services, farm stay, farm vacations. Yeah, there's, like I said, the Airbnb thing is really opens the door for a lot of people to have non-traditional experiences. Instead of just going to a hotel somewhere, they can really kind of stick their toe in the water of different lifestyles.
Yeah, I mean, for the the time and the costs of building the structure and everything, compared to the annual income that it generates, I think it's a big positive, and I would definitely encourage other farmers that have that available to them, or if you're in an area that you feel it could benefit, it definitely helps the pocketbook and the bottom dollar when you're pinching pennies, because in general you're not making a whole lot of money farming unless you got a specific plan and a specific thing you're following.
Yeah. All right. So Ben, looking ahead, what if you have a 5-year plan? What do you think the next 5 years holds for Hill Valley Farm?
I've never been great with 5-year plans, if you want the truth, Troy. My wife and I are due with our first child in July, and that's a whole nother I'll say unknown-ish. So
that's a game changer. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I think this year, with the amount of time that I've spent with growing everything, and we're about at a level that I'm happy with. I feel like I can keep this a side business, and it's still enjoyable. I love doing it. I don't want to be overwhelmed, because I've definitely been known to get too many irons in the fire, and I think keeping it kind of manageable right where we are is pretty good. I'd like to maybe expand to have some more sows for feeder pigs in the spring, and maybe try to throw my dice in and raising a couple beef, but that's about as far as I'd like to go at this point.
I see. Now, I've noticed on your website, it looks like you've got a decent size vegetable operation there. Are those hops you're growing as well?
Yeah. When you said my interest earlier, they're pretty numerous, and I started home brewing, and I think hops are a cool plant, besides the fact that I like beer too.
Right.
So just got a trellis out by my barn, and there's 6 of them there, and it's just amazing that a plant can grow that big and tall every year, and then it's done and does the same thing next year.
Yeah.
So hops, we have the standard vegetable garden. I have a fruit orchard and strawberries, blueberries. So like I said, lots of irons in the fire.
Yeah. Like you said, the diversity keeps you from getting bored, but be a little bit of a tough management at times. But very exciting to have all that different product coming off the farm.
Yep.
All right. Well, Ben, one thing I always ask as a closer, just to get your overall assessment, what is your best experience or favorite parts about raising pigs on pasture?
Well, I think my favorite thing, like I said, is there's nothing cuter than little spotted newborn piglets.
Right.
And that's my number one thing. But I think the close second is all of those spousal bonding tasks, like I said, whether it's being out there in December trying to artificially inseminate a pig in the middle of winter, or hey Brittany, guess what, it's pig castration night. So doing all of those less than pleasant tasks is part of a team, and making both of us contribute. I think that's it keeps us grounded, I think, and definitely adds to our marriage.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, you got you a keeper there. She's out there helping you inseminate and doing castration. That's a good woman right there.
She is. Quick side note. So I went to Africa about a month ago to visit my friend that was in the Peace Corps, and I was gone for 2 weeks. I got her permission beforehand, but I left my pregnant wife in Michigan while I went to Africa, and 2 pigs farrowed while I was gone, which we knew was going to happen anyway. So if I can get away with all that, she's definitely a keeper.
Yeah, you're gonna have to make up for that somehow this year.
Yeah, this I know.
Yeah, I see a lot of diaper changes in your future.
Yeah, like all of them.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that sounds like that's great. I mean, tag teamwork is well, they say teamwork makes the dream work when it comes to farming. That's good to have.
True story.
All right. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing your story with us. Congratulations on your pending child. It's always good to have farm hands, and so hopefully that goes well. And I was going to say your wife's farrowing, but that's probably not appropriate to say. Is it?
She'd beat me. She'd be okay with it.
All right. Oh, good. Well, I pray everything goes well there, and you guys have a great season.
Appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
All right, man. Take care. I really appreciate Ben taking the time to come on the podcast and share a story with us. I really like to hear all the different ways people are managing their pastured pig operation incorporated into other things they've got going on their farm. Well, if you'd like to suggest topics or if you'd like to request to be interviewed on the podcast, by all means, go to redtoolhouse.com, click on the Pastured Pig Podcast link, and give us your information there, and we'll get you scheduled. We're still trying to figure out exactly how to do this from the home studio, a.k.a. the hallway. Since I don't have the luxury of going to my office, I can, I guess, but it's pointless for me to go to the office here recently. So we're still trying to figure out exactly how to do phone interviews and do those type of things since we live in a technologically devoid area. But we'll try to keep cranking them out. Well, I pray everyone has a great week out in the pasture. Take care.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of the Pastured Pig Podcast. To learn more about our podcast or to submit topics or recommend guests for future episodes, visit redtoolhouse.com.